From the opening tip-off to the final buzzer of the big dance, this is where the madness lives. The roar of the student section, we hear it. The bracket-busting upsets, we predict them. The legends in the making, we've got the stats on lock. Whether you're a diehard alum or a casual fan of the chaos, you're officially on the clock. This is the pulse of the court. This is the home of the hoop. And this is Hardwood Gameday. And now, the man who lives and breathes the game, here's your host, Trevor Williams.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Hardwood Gameday. I'm your host, Trevor Williams. We're bringing you the best action of women's and men's college basketball today. It's our pregame show before the new slate. What other way than getting it started? I know a lot of the women's games are running into their semifinals, and we're about to crown conference champions, ladies and gentlemen. But the men also have a few interesting matchups as well. We're just going to see things, break things down as they are, but there's two news stories that we would like to cover today, ladies and gentlemen. So let's just break it down. But before we get into the news, make sure you go and follow ETB so you can get all the latest sports news and events going around the country in the world of sports as well. Also, give a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're over 2,000 watch hours, getting close to 4,000. So every minute that you watch on our YouTube channel gets us a step closer in getting monetized and be able to add more production and improve our capabilities on this network. So we'll definitely love your support and all that you can do for us. But let's get into some comments. First things first. Looks like we got this hitting for the cycle podcast and repost for this stream, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure you get and do that as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we got going on today. First things first, we're going to talk about Miami being undefeated, Miami of Ohio. What was I talking about all season during college football? The MAC conference, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it has expanded to Sacramento State, and that's going to impact football. But, ladies and gentlemen, Miami of Ohio is undefeated, about to dance in their way into March Madness. What a season that they had thus far. We'll get into their record and their schedule and how they pulled it off. But the first thing is first, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on the thumbnail, that President Trump is thinking about doing an executive order on the NIL deal. But let's make things first, ladies and gentlemen. We are not a political show, but I do agree that there needs to be some rules and regulations behind the NIL deal 100%. I think players are taking advantage of it. But that's also due to the NCAA's fault. I think we've seen within the last, let's say 6 years, let's play it as simple as it is, but it can go back further if you want to look at other instances when the NCAA has dealt with players' compensation and along that stuff and collective incentives. But let's break what it is. I think the NCAA started to break itself down during COVID. We saw that. And there was no leadership behind the NCAA of what conferences could and couldn't do during a global pandemic, which put students at risk. Let's make that clear. We didn't know what the situation was when it got underway, but as things developed, we got a better picture of what that looked like. But you had conferences like the SEC trying to play a full regular game schedule and within conference. The Big Ten opted out, but then they were like saying, well, everyone else is playing. I guess we can play too. But that's when the NCAA should have stepped in saying, this is what we're doing, and you can follow suit. Because look what ended up happening. Notre Dame had to frantically join the ACC for that football season. And that, yes, they play in the ACC, which makes sense, which a lot of their sports teams do. But, ladies and gentlemen, on top of that, the NCAA right now in the last, like I said, 6 years has, I would say, as Dave Portnoy would put it, spineless. They have no backbone right now. They're just going in the wind and letting conferences and athletes figure out this landscape. And it's up to the conference presidents and maybe even top of the university presidents to figure out these rules and regulations. And since each conference will take it a different stance, it's really the top dogs are doing the governance of it all, which that shouldn't be the case. And we need a government body of the NCAA to make the rules and the laws of the land. Now, granted, yes, you can say conferences can be more stringent of GPAs and all that stuff. That's up to the conference prestige. It's almost how you kind of have the federal government structure in the U.S. system capability, where the federal government has the general, I would say, gist of bare minimum laws. If you need to make it stricter, then it goes up to the state level, and then you have local level of government. So that's how it kind of could work in the world of college sports. Now, it's not a perfect system, as we all know, as we see in our constitutional, as I would say, society that we're in, our democracy. But like I said, I'm not getting into politics, what's right and what's wrong. But this is what we need to figure out in the world of college sports. Athletes can't be jumping ship to just get more money each and every year. It's like, okay, I'm at Ohio State for 1 year, and then I'm going to hit the transfer portal to ask maybe UCLA for more money. Yes, I'm in the Big Ten in that scenario, or I could do vice versa. I could go from Ohio State to, LSU and try to ask for more money and thinking that the SEC will give me more money than the Big Ten. Like, that's what these student athletes are going to do. They're going to keep moving around, which is going to put a deeper pocket for some of these universities. Yes, I understand that players should be paid, but to what extent has this gotten out of hand? I think we all can agree that the compensation of what the student athletes are getting is impacted, because it's almost like it's a full-time job and gig. And I've also did see in the past where high school athletes at some point could get paid, and now that's up to the state's, I guess, up to the state's ability to decide if high school athletes should be paid and how that looks. But let's make it clear, ladies and gentlemen, we have to figure out what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in this game of NIL. Now, what people thought this should be, even I would say Nick Saban, I'm not going to go word for word from the ESPN post, but the universities, I would say in Nick Saban's eyes, he was trying to develop students and athletes so they could be prepared to be a successful post, college sports world. Like, not everyone makes it to the professional level. Majority of people from those top universities, maybe like a small percentage, do make it pros, but it's always after your career in sports. That's what matters. I would say the average professional sports lifestyle outside of the superstars that we see is probably only average of 3 years. After 3 years, they become an average person like you and me, doing podcasts and all that stuff and sharing their experience. Now, if they didn't set themselves up to be successful while they were in college, their career will be, it might be talked about for those 3 years, but then you get to a certain point where generations just don't talk about you because there's the new hottest trend or the new athlete that kind of takes up people's memory. And then lo and behold, you're forgot about in history and you don't have your name of image to carry you through. Maybe you have a fantastic college career and you win the best award possible and you go back to that college town. You're basically a college town hero and your stories will live forever infamy at the university. But I think we need to start looking about what this actually means. If President Trump does sign this executive order into play, I don't know what the rules and regulations of what that looks like. I will have to do deeper research if that goes into effect, what that looks like, and how does that play out for generations to come if that executive order looms large for years after his presidency? Because we all know rules and laws get forgotten about and something gets kicked off and it gets brought back to light 30 plus years later. So we have to take a look at that for sure, ladies and gentlemen. On top of that, I think that the student athletes are getting away with a little bit too much. Well, I wanted to say maybe some of those players may not be on scholarship. and they're paying their way to the university. This NIL can help some of those students that are less fortunate and couldn't get a scholarship to pay for their college experience. And they couldn't get this scholarship. Like that's how it should be. Like that's like the second tier. Like the scholarship should get you there. Focus on the education, as I'm gonna probably harp on a lot of things, and then kind of round things out. Now, yes, it helps for like room and board, other classes. Maybe that student athlete wants to be a pilot and they have to pay for the lab fees and it's not looped into their tuition. Like there's stuff like that where the NIL funds do help those in need. But at the same time, the university, like the coach is now like a boss manager where it's like, I have to regulate how much money my student athletes get. And that's like another layer of coaching that a coach has to navigate and figure out on top of that. Like it's one of those things where a college coach has way more, I would say, responsibility to look at now versus instead of like, okay, I got to focus in the regular season to build my team and go out and win. And then in the offseason, I got to recruit. Now the NIL adds another layer to that where it's like, okay, I got to recruit, but am I offering too much or too little to get this 5-star athlete or this 4-star athlete? And that's going to end up changing the game. Now, granted, depending on how you get your coaching tree set up and bringing your talent into the university, that's going to drive a lot of things for everybody. So from there, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to start having coaches figure out, all right, I need to create a staff that focuses on NIL and finance. Is that the university's job, or is that going to rely on the coach's job to figure out and build that staff? Yes, the university will probably have to go through the background checks and the interviewing process, but at the end of the day, the head coach is becoming like the boss outside of the university president and the university board. Now, the university board can step in and figure things out as well. But then you also have the alumni base, the donations that go into this. And depending what alumni base you got, that's going to drive how much NIL that you have available. If your school's not winning, then the NIL doesn't pump it. But now you're getting CEOs thrown into the mix where it's like, we like our head coach. And now this big time school is trying to poach them. And then you have like this university, for example, is like a Somnio cookie stepping in. It's like saying, we're going to save our coach. Like, I'm not losing my coach after a great season that my school had in, quite some time. So it's stuff like that. Like, we like the chaos of college football, but we need a little bit more regulation, just a little bit more. And the magnitude, the intensity of what we got going on in that it speaks volumes. Now, will the conferences follow suit? Will we see an NCAA with a strong backbone again? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I guarantee you we're going to probably get some type of scandal where it just doesn't work out on top of that. And it just looks ugly. There's going to be, I would say, I don't know how big some NIL budgets are, but at some point we're going to have an NIL budget over $1 billion. And it's just like, it's insane. Like, we have to find a way to cap. Is there going to be a salary cap? Maybe that's the most appropriate way to level out the playing field so we don't have a super college team. But at the same time, that's going to like bankrupt schools, I could see. Like, if they can't pay their players, it may not work out. Now, granted, yes, the alumni can finance it, but at the same time, to what extent is that all that worth for, winning a national championship that a lot of people can relate to because you went to that school, you participated versus a professional team where it's like, it was my local area. We rooted for that team and we supported. Like, you went to this university for a lot of people. Like, it was your bachelor's degree. It could have been your associate's degree, and it could be your master's degree, or it could be your PhD or doctorate. Like, you have ties to these universities. You want to see those universities do well if they have a sports team and they're on the up and up. Like, for example, Miami of Ohio. You see that Miami of Ohio is undefeated and you went there, you're ecstatic through the roof. It's like, this could be the generational run, and I got to see this through. And then whatever happens, I guarantee you some of those people are signing their checks to make sure that program stays relevant and possibly dominant to years to come, and build a cycle that is going to come through and get things through on top of that. But ladies and gentlemen, we need more governance. That's all I can harp on and figure out for this NIL. So with that getting taken care of now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some basketball topics. We like Miami of Ohio right now, and I've been harping on the MAC conference, like I said, since this show of Gridiron Gridlock has been underway at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. Like the underway of what we got going on here. The energy, the magnitude, the excitement of it all. But it's historic the way we have to describe it. It is historic on top of that. Like it's unprecedented. Let's just look at their schedule. Just the beauty of Miami of Ohio. Undefeated, 31-0, surviving overtime. I want to say last night. Let me see if I can get to the MAC relatively quick. Mid-America. Oh, there we go. Right here. We're going to take a look at their schedule. But just think about it. Having a school go undefeated, it's like it's very difficult to go undefeated. But 31 games, and you get the job done. Now, where they're going to sit in the bracket? Maybe a 16 seed, maybe a 15 seed, possibly a 13 seed is the highest I could see that they ended up going. But just take a look at the journey. Yes, they had a couple scares, a couple OTs against Buffalo and Kent State, and then in Ohio on top of that, where it could have gone either way. But they survived. They found ways to survive, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not an easy task. Yes, they still got UMass in March 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. But at the same time, this is one of those historical runs where you look back at it saying you're glad that you got to see some of them in action. I mean, like some of the games, they had significant margin of victory. But then you have other games where it looks like it could have gone the other way and close of it all. Like, just let that sink in. The journey, the magnitude of it all, the competition. Yes, they don't play a lot of the big schools, but the MAC conference gets itself done for being competitive each and every year that we've seen thus far. Like you got Akron in the mix, the small conferences like where Dayton's at, like they have that generational run that gets the nation talking about. America loves the underdog story. We just love it. We eat it up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of those things where you see the heat streak going. You see the momentum that they have building, and you don't want it to stop. But when it goes up against your team, you want it to end. You don't want to be the team that loses to them. You want to be the team that puts the nail in the coffin and puts that game out of reach. But, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, they played Miami of Ohio already. They won 90-74, but then when they played it literally Friday last night, they had a win in overtime, 110-108. Like, does this streak end? Like, if you keep going back, the games get a little bit tighter. For example, on March 3rd, they played Toledo 74-72, closer margin. Western Michigan 69-67. Eastern Michigan was a little bit better in margin, but winning by 10, 74-64. Bowling Green on February 20th, 91-77. So as you can see, as you go back, they got the larger, victory. But when they get closer to March Madness, the teams that they could derail them start to formulate. Now they don't have to deal with these teams, majority of the time in March Madness because they're playing the bigger schools. But let's just take a look at the game that happened last night. Just like some of the stats that make it interesting on top of that. Just letting my computer get up to speed on that. But yeah. So looking at the stats, ladies and gentlemen, from the field when they played Ohio last night, 51% from the field compared to Ohio's 49% from the field. Where they could have lost the game, free throw line. They missed 10 free throws, ladies and gentlemen. March Madness, you got to be making your free throws. You can't be missing 10. Now, later in the stretch, you might be strategic to miss one and try to get the rebound make it a 3-point play, but make your free throws. They shot 31 for 41 from the free throw line versus Ohio was 20 for 25, missed 5. But majority of the lead was led by Miami of Ohio. About 78% of the time was led by Miami of Ohio. Turnovers was 8 and 7. But from the three, 42%, 44%, that's a lot of threes. If you look how many shot attempts, Miami of Ohio shot, 11 for 26, and Ohio shot 14 for 32. Now, if you could convert some of those points, free 3-point percentage into 2-point shots that went in, that might change the game on how this ends up shaking itself out. But like I said, if you take a look at the shot chart of where all these baskets are shot from, a lot of it's inside of the paint. You work it in, you make the magic happen. But at the same time, on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, you see where the 3-point shot is. If you look from the court from the image, ladies and gentlemen, just to say from where it is, on the top left-hand corner, there's a lot of missed shots up there. It's tough to shoot from the corner. But as you start moving on the top of the arc, that's where Miami of Ohio is going to start lighting up its threes. Same with Ohio as well, but those are more easier shots because you got the square to hit it from. Now, as we start looking at this great run and getting the team focused for March Madness and taking one step at a time, you got to take the games in front of you. You can't be like, oh, we got locked in, because what happens if they lose? I want to say the MAC championship. I don't know if that was the MAC championship game last night that was taking place, but let's say if they would have lost, they would probably miss the March Madness tournament. And that is a shame and tragedy. Based on the momentum that they had, and then you don't win it, it's like, yes, I understand that you get an automatic bid. The March Madness tournament in itself is large, and you have the play-in tournaments. But why is a small school having a historical run, loses one game and misses and can't win their conference championship, is punished in this scenario, versus a school in the group of in the Power Four that has maybe 9 losses on the year, and they get a spot, and then you're making Miami of Ohio play the play-in tournament? I did hear the analogy. It is a money grab a lot of the time. It is, but these small schools need to have a shot, but making sure that you're getting the audience that you're looking for. At the end of the day, sports is entertainment. And if it's not entertaining, people are not going to watch, and you're not going to make money. That is the bottom line about sports, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't get prettier. I wouldn't say prettier. It's the most bare basic. If it's not entertaining, people are not watching. It's like how people were reviewing the Super Bowl. People didn't want to watch a Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl. Now, if the Patriots didn't get in, it might feel a little bit different on top of it. If it was Broncos-Seahawks, it might be a little bit of a turnout. But at the same time, people want the big names to be on there and all that stuff, the energy. But when you have, we even kind of saw it last year in the NBA Finals. It's just not what people were looking for. People want to see the Celtics there, but other fans get tired of it. We like a good story. And if there's no story behind it, it's just I guess it's fine. Look at the example at the Olympics. We had the story arcs. We had our Blade Angels out there for our figure skating team. Those were miraculous women out there on the ice and making Team USA proud and the people in the United States happy back at home. It's difficult to enjoy yourself in those moments on the world stage on top of that. But at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, we gotta look at the beauty of the sports, ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of the sport. And I know I'm probably paused right now, but we'll just keep talking to make sure we have everything looking at it as is. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start thinking about transitioning our topics relatively soon, but I'm just going to keep going with this tangent because I don't think my screen is coming back. Let me just take a quick peek of what we got going on the live stream. All right, we're coming back slowly but surely now, ladies and gentlemen. So, and we're back. But think about it. Those moments in time, the excitement of March Madness. I don't think we need to expand it. I think we need to fix it a little bit to have more interesting matchups, have the bigger schools build up to the madness to it, and fight for a spot. And let the small conferences who have been good get in as a 16 seed, and they don't have to play. And maybe if you want to test their luck, sure. But if they're undefeated, if they have one loss and they get left out, I think we need to look at that for sure. Because March Madness, we like the Cinderella. We like the bracket upsets of the 12th seed upsetting the 5 seed, or the 13th seed upsetting the 4 seed. It happens more frequently in the men's bracket. The women's bracket is a completely different story. Like, the top 8 teams are most likely going to make it to the Elite 8, depending how things go through and how injuries happen in the tournament. Now, hopefully, we're going to start seeing more of the transition of different teams building through, but the women's game hasn't gotten to that point yet. But the men's, the upsets are looming. We've seen a 16 upset of 1 twice in our lifetime. We never thought that we would see that in majority of a lot of people's lifetimes, but it's happened twice. We've seen the 15 seed do it a few times as well, but it's all been done. The story arcs, the energy of March Madness is here, ladies and gentlemen. And Miami of Ohio is looking great at this moment in time. But let's start talking about the games today. Let's start looking at the women's, because a lot of them right now are in the semifinal side of the bracket. As I try to clean some of this up right now. But yes, so in the women's side right now, in the Big Ten, you have Ohio State, who's number 11 in the nation, versus UCLA, who is number 2 in the nation, undefeated in the Big Ten, 29-1. It's really been a UCLA show, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this is the Big Ten semifinal. Like, Ohio State women's good and all. They have a great record of 26-6, looking like a possible home bid, a 4th seed in the tournament for the women's. If they do, I might get to go because my work schedule, I'm off Thursday through Saturday, so I get to see the Thursday games, and they're midday. So we've lucked up a blessing in disguise. So that gives me an excuse to walk to that game to experience the madness of March. But my trip that I came back from California, that the bank account's not looking pretty after that. But we'll get some reimbursements, and we'll be back in the green again. Don't you worry, and we'll make our way to those games and living life to the fullest on top of that. But ladies and gentlemen, think about what this means for a lot of things that end up happening right now. We have a great thing going on with this game. Ohio State looking to find a way to win. They average about 82 points a game compared to UCLA's 85 points per game on top of that. Then you have the points against, ladies and gentlemen, the points against. I don't think you could overlook what that is. Ohio State gives up about 66 points a game compared to UCLA's 57.2 points per game, ladies and gentlemen. And then from the field speaks volumes. If you can't win the field goal percentage, you're most likely going to lose the game for the women's at the same time. But UCLA shoots about 51% from the field on average compared to Ohio State's 46% on average. On top of that as well, ladies and gentlemen, the rebounds, UCLA takes it with 42.8 rebounds per game compared to Ohio State's 37. Assists, 18 assists on average for Ohio State, 22 for UCLA. The block party, ladies and gentlemen, kind of averages out about 4.5 for both schools. And then steals. Ohio State likes to steal the ball a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Almost 12 steals on game compared to UCLA's 8.3. But hey, it's basketball is always about the game of runs. If UCLA keeps a good shooting percentage, they'll most likely walk out this victory, even though Ohio State's a little bit more scrappier on defense with the steals going on. But I just want to take a quick peek if I can make sure my computer cooperates. On top of that, looking at the last time that Ohio State and UCLA played each other, which was kind of like I want to say, a little bit of a runaway on top of that. But we're just going to go to the teams. We have to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Just have to think about it. No answers to questions right here, right now. Big Ten, where are you? But what does Ohio State have to do to win? I mean, the spread is minus 12.5 UCLA at this point in time as well. So, okay, Big East. Oh, my goodness. See, this is what happens when you just have to go to the conference and go by teams. Never again, ladies and gentlemen. Make a mental note for that. But let's say, so the last time that they played each other was back in December. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that, looking at the schedule to compare it to, but back in December, Ohio State lost 82-75. When you look at this, ladies and gentlemen, the highlights of that game. From the field, UCLA won. I did say that. If you win the field goal percentage, you kind of win the game. UCLA shot 45 from the field, Ohio State 44. From the three-point line, ladies and gentlemen, 32% to 23%. Ohio State shot 33s and made 7 the last time they met. UCLA, 7 for 22. Free throw line, ladies and gentlemen. UCLA went to free throw 13 times, made 9 shots, got 69%. Nice. But Ohio State was better in the free throw percentage, missed 2. 12 free throws made and 14 attempts from the free throw line. Steals, 16-12. UCLA had 16, Ohio State had 12. Rebounds, UCLA is better. Those boards matter, ladies and gentlemen. 47-32. A majority of the lead was held by UCLA with 95%, and the largest lead was 16. But if we break down the game as it is from the first quarter, UCLA, Ohio State, and back in December, the score in the first quarter was 18-16. Then when you get to the second one, UCLA started to increase the margin, 21-17. Then you get to the third quarter, 24-23, and then you round things out with 19-19. So where the downfall was, it was the second half. No, it was not the second half. It was the second quarter. That's where the margin grew larger than it should have been. Now today in the semifinals, going into trying to win, the conference championship, you got to focus on those 40 minutes that you got out there on that court. Capitalize on the turnovers and make sure you box out to get the rebounds, and the game is yours. And shoot well from the field. Take good shot selection, good ball movement, and take open looks, and you'll be fine. That's what Ohio State has to do. And then for UCLA, just keep dominating. Dominate the boards. Get the steals that you need, but shoot well from the field, and the game is yours as well. So going up next, ladies and gentlemen, some more semifinals action. You got North Carolina versus Louisville ACC semifinals on top of that, ladies and gentlemen. So going back to the standings for these two schools. I mean, Louisville, North Carolina looking relatively good. I mean, common opponents that they had was Virginia and both school. Well, Louisville lost by 274-72. However, North Carolina won 82-70. Sorry for the yawn, everybody. The time zone shift is getting to me a little bit. I would say I'd be waking up relatively around this time out in California. So as we take a look at the ACC, ladies and gentlemen, with North Carolina and Louisville, they have to focus on many different things on top of that. But if you're looking at the game, you know, let's just take a look at the last time that they played, and it was at North Carolina, ladies and gentlemen. On top of that, too, so getting a deeper dive at this game, Louisville ended up winning 76-66. Great performance by Louisville. Could they do the upset again? Sure. But again, what I've been preaching to the gospel choir in this scenario is if you win the field goal percentage, you win the game. If you look at the field, Louisville shot 40% from the field compared to North Carolina's 38% from the field. Now, on top of that, the three-point line is also relatively similar. 30. My goodness, people, I'm deeply sorry. On top of that, the three-point line for North Carolina in that game was 11 for 29. For Louisville, it was 8 for 26 from the three-point percentage. Not the best. But again, free throws speak volumes. In that game, North Carolina shot 58% from the field. They were 7-12. Louisville was 82%, 14 for 17. Turnovers, North Carolina had 16 and Louisville had 14. Rebounds, 39 for North Carolina and 44 for Louisville. And Louisville led majority of the game with 3% going to North Carolina at one point. But however, ladies and gentlemen, this game did go into overtime, and North Carolina did not put up any points in overtime. So when you look at like the shot field, like the threes were abysmal and atrocious. Like I'm just gonna leave that as it is right there. But it's the magnitude, getting the points, getting the rebounds, capitalizing, making good shot selections is going to be the moral of this story for sure, ladies and gentlemen. And now let's kind of round out the women's side of things. We love a good round two. LSU, number 6 in the nation, versus South Carolina, number 3 in the nation. SEC semifinals today, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ESPN2. Funny thing is, ladies and gentlemen, when I was making the script when I was out in California, I was putting the times for Pacific Time as Eastern Time, so I was messing up terribly. And I saw that, I'm like saying, yeah, that time does not make sense anymore. I'm like saying, okay, we're going to get rid of that and rewrite the script a little bit. So we did rewrite the script this morning on top of that. As we just got to love doing that. But, ladies and gentlemen, a good round two for South Carolina and LSU. The matchup was good. The energy was magnificent the first time around. And it just doesn't get better. We like this matchup here, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at the teams when they played a common opponent, example, Missouri, LSU won 108-55, and South Carolina won 112-71. That's what we're dealing with between these two schools. Defense and points. That's how these two ladies programs run right now. And just look at that right now as I scroll to prepare for this game. LSU, ladies and gentlemen, was 12-4 in the SEC play, and South Carolina is 15-1. Overall record is 30-2, and LSU 27-4, ladies and gentlemen. But let's look at the last time that they played each other. The energy of that matchup was taking place February 14th. Tough love on Valentine's Day. Final score of that game was 79-72. Now, when you think about this, what does LSU have to improve this time around? I mean, in the first quarter, they came out swinging. They came out dominant, 21-16. Then South Carolina roared back in the second with 25 points to 19. And then they just kept keeping that defense and keeping them at bay. And the third quarter was 19-15, and the fourth quarter 19-17. But it was a game of two halves. Is the best way of breaking it down. Again, from the field, you win the game. South Carolina, 42% from the field. And LSU, 40% from the field. But what happened? The threes. South Carolina made 8 threes and shot 17 of them. 47% from the free throw, from the 3-point line. But then you look at the 3 points for LSU. They shot 12 of them and only made 2. That kind of hurts, if you ask me. That kind of hurts. Turnovers about 9 for both teams. But the free throws, ladies and gentlemen, make your free throws. South Carolina, 15-17. We'll take that. We'll take 15-17 with an 88%. But LSU, ladies, come on. What's happened? You telling the nation that you're the show. You're this elite team that everyone should be watching every Saturday and in the tournament. But you shot 14 for 23 with a 61% from the free throw line. 61%, ladies and gentlemen. Let that set in. You're telling me that you're saying you're the show. Everyone needs to watch you. And you shoot 61% from the free throw line. I just gotta let you sit there with that. Gotta let you sit there and think for your actions. Just think for your actions. Now, you look at the rebounds. They try to redeem themselves. But that's probably like some of the 10 of those rebounds probably came from their threes that they missed. I guarantee you that. That's probably what ended up happening. Or from the missed free throws that they try to get second chance shots. That's where it ended up happening. I'm sorry for harping on them, but you got to make your free throws. In March Madness, you can't be missing your free throws. Free throws will either save or break your season, and it will destroy many teams. But you got to focus. You got to lock in. You got to be laser focused and trying to manage all of that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the men's game. We got some interesting stuff for the men's game, 100% for sure, ladies and gentlemen. And I know as we start looking at the brackets, this is when you start looking at who's getting hot, who's building that momentum for the tournament, and what seed do you like them to be in when everything's all said and done on the bracketology front on top of that. I know we're winding down on time, ladies and gentlemen, with today's program, but we got about 15 minutes and a lot of great games to cover in those 15 minutes. And I know you guys enjoy when I get to the final 10 where I just speak my mind and we just kind of go off script and talk about the college experience and how much I love talking about the MAC conference. I mean, at this point, if the commissioner or the president of the MAC conference is listening, or any school from the MAC conference is listening to Hardwood Gameday. We would love to have your merch so I can hang it up in my apartment and put you guys in, that section of the room there or that section of the wall over there. Just, flags and jerseys and all that stuff. It would be fantastic if you could, do that for me. We would highly appreciate it. But we just want to decorate in the swag and praise the MAC conference, even though I love the Big Ten and support it. But we got to support the smaller conferences where they are. To me, the MAC conference is in my backyard outside of Sacramento State. So I will support the Big Ten conference, and I support the American conference. And I'll support the MAC conference. Like me being on the road for those teams, I could see it. Just, buy a ticket and just show up and wear the right school's colors and enjoy my time. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's start breaking down the men's game. We're going to keep it relatively short and sweet as we start rounding things out. You got Vanderbilt, number 24 in the nation, versus Tennessee, who is number 23 in the nation. When you look at this, ladies and gentlemen, they played each other before, and Vanderbilt lost 69-65 in a heartbreaking fashion. But then Tennessee loses to Missouri 73-69, and Vanderbilt loses by 1. This is going to be another close game, but we'll see how they end up faring. But I'm getting the stat line to find out what we got going on between these two schools the last time they played each other. When it was 69-65, ladies and gentlemen, Tennessee was trailing by 4 in the first half, 35-31. And then Tennessee tried to make a siege to come back, but it wasn't. Well, they ended up winning for sure. And Vanderbilt fell short because it was 38-30 in the second half. But from the free throw line, from the percentage, Vanderbilt shot 22 from 53 from the field compared to Tennessee's 25 to 58 the last time they played. The threes, kind of the same boat. Vanderbilt shot a little bit too many threes. They shot 9. No, they shot 23 and only made 9. Tennessee, on the other hand, was 4 for 12. Free throw lines, ladies and gentlemen. I will say it again, and I'll stop making. I need a T-shirt to be made. Make your free throws. Let's look at the free throws from the last time they played. Vanderbilt was 67% from the free throw line. That was 12 for 18. When Tennessee went to the free throw line, it was 15 for 21. 71%. Rebounds, 39-30. Turnovers for Vanderbilt, 10. Tennessee, 9. But majority of the time, Vanderbilt was leading this game. If you look at the win probability, they were going through, making key adjustments. And then Tennessee started to rally back. And that was the beginning of the end for Vanderbilt. So that's that matchup going forward. So now let's take a look at another matchup. We like good rivalries. You got North Carolina Duke. Let's say one more time. We like a sequel. Sequel's not always the best because the original is always better. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have a game that could be a clash of the Titans right now. Duke, 21-2. 10-1 in the ACC. But North Carolina, ladies and gentlemen, was 19. Oh, I want to make sure I got this right. Oh, that's when they played earlier. So when they play now, Duke is 28-2 with a 16-1 ACC record. North Carolina, on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, was 24-6. and an ACC record of 12-5 on top of that, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone's saying that North Carolina is favored to win. Duke is favored to win. 92.5% to North Carolina 7.4. But if you look the last time that they played, when that margin was large, North Carolina won 71-68. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very possible that North Carolina pulls up another upset here. And that will sink large volumes into how people will pick Duke in this tournament. Now, it's not no Purdue, but losing to this North Carolina team, I don't know. It seems pretty interesting. But if you look from the stats, North Carolina from the field was 47% compared to Duke's 45%. 3 points is where North Carolina kind of opened up the margin. 42% from the 3-point line and 37% for Duke. Now free throws, a little bit better. 5 for 6 for Duke. And North Carolina, 11 for 14. So we need to figure out how did this collapse? Was it the turnovers? There's only 8-7. Rebounds, Duke was better on the rebounds. They let the majority of the game. And then the collapse at the tail end of the game. So, again, it's a game of runs. North Carolina probably had the final run to get things through. But that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Finding ways to win and when the odds are stacked up against you is the best way to describe it. But you can catch today's game at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time on ESPN. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a game that we'll be talking about tomorrow to round things out is Michigan State, number 8 in the nation, versus the maize and blue of Michigan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we like these rivalries running into the conference tournaments. It changes the dynamics of everything. But let's look at the last time that these two schools played each other. Michigan won relatively convincingly, 83-71. Michigan in the first half, 42-26. But Michigan State tried to make a siege to come back, but it was a little too late. Final second half score was 41-45. But the field goal percentage, ladies and gentlemen, kind of spoke a little bit more volumes. Michigan State shot 22 for 60, and with the 37% from the field that game. Michigan 44%, with a 26-59 from the field. Threes were kind of in Michigan's favor, with making 8 out of 21 with a 38%. Michigan State was 17 with 4 for 23. A lot of threes were taken by Michigan State. Probably try to get their way back into the game, but they probably should have made their twos and just chipped away and made rebounds as best they could. I mean, free throws were insane. 26 for 23 for Michigan, and Michigan State 27 for 23 on top of that. So relatively same across the board in all aspects of the game, ladies and gentlemen. But turnovers, 13-14, and rebounds, ladies and gentlemen, 36-36. And Michigan State at one point led the game with 1% with the 2-point lead, compared to Michigan's 18 was their largest lead. So most likely the Michigan Wolverines have a great record thus far, trying to cap off the Big Ten season as what it is thus far. But I mean, looking at what they got through, losing to Duke hurt them a little bit, but they came back swinging better than ever and taking care of business to close out their season, ladies and gentlemen. And that's how we're going to conclude it. Catch Michigan State versus Michigan, 8-3 tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Time on CBS. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about for the last 4 minutes of today's show. Thank you so much for people who are watching it. I see about 80 people tuned in this morning. We highly appreciate all that you do for our network and the time that you put into this hour show. We couldn't be doing this stuff without all your love and support. We really, truly appreciate all that you do here on and for our show, for Hardwood Gameday, as well as the other ETV shows that we have. We have a lot of things cooking up in the wings with the World Cup coming through. I got my benchmark episode recorded for the World Cup, I think of the 94 games for the men's. So I'm working on another one as well. So that one should be coming out momentarily soon. So once Hardwood Gameday kind of rounds out, we'll try to think of what we can be doing in the off season, trying to make the show a little bit better and find ways to, get more fan engagement. So to have you guys comment and chime in for the pregame show, your thoughts, food suggestions about different college towns, what you like about certain colleges and universities, your time at those universities, what it was like when those sports programs were underway, the stories, all that stuff, ladies and gentlemen. We love to have that here on Hardwood Gameday. I know with the tournament selection show right around the corner, we're going to probably have a show for that. So stay tuned as we get closer towards the March Madness, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, we are a little bit back with my work schedule. Hardwood Gameday is not going to be impacted too much, as I will still have the Saturdays kind of open to myself and kind of regulate as best I can. I would say my work shift's not the best, but it's good to get me to experience the morning. I'm about to sneeze. Let me pause real quick. On top of that, but we're going to have interesting program. On top of that, I got another sneeze because sneezes always coming too. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, Hardwood Gameday is looking relatively good. As we round up for today's show, ladies and gentlemen, go out and see if you can get yourself March Madness tickets. Go out, support your universities and schools. And if your school's not in that area, still go out and support those athletes. It's what they've been dreaming of for some of them quite some time, to be on March Madness, creating bracket upsets. I guarantee you, a lot of them were growing up watching March Madness and watching the upset, saying, I too can do that for whatever school I can attend to. Having a story that lasts a test of time, from the ups, the downs, the stories, the momentum swings, is what is captured in March Madness. Thank you so much for watching today's program, ladies and gentlemen. We are truly grateful and thankful for all that you do and support us for our passion of Empty the Bench, ladies and gentlemen. Without you, there is no show. And without you watching, there really wouldn't be much of us really doing this for the most part. We truly thank you and enjoy the games for the men's and the women's games wrapping up their conference championships this weekend. And we'll catch you next time here on Hardwood Gameday. So long for now. Bye-bye.